it going? So today is an exciting day out in the garden because I am planting more hydrangeas. These are called Invincibelle Ruby, and I'm just so thrilled with these because of their color. I think their size is going to be perfect, but as you know, I really do love hydrangeas. I've got a lot of them in my garden, but they're more on the white and green side of things. I've got Incredibles, Limelights, Limettas. In fact, I took a couple of pictures yesterday that we'll throw up on the screen so you can see what they look like right now. They're doing really well, but I don't have a lot of this kind of color. And I thought that these would be just so beautiful and there's kind of this little swoop or hedge in the garden. So I think they're described as being kind of like a ruby red, but they're kind of like just a beautiful pink with a silver overlay. And if you look at other blooms like in bud form, so look at this one right here, the buds look more like a mauve, like a deep mauve color. And then as they open, they have this look. And then as they age, here's a really good example. They kind of just take on more of this blush pink appearance. So this flower bed has been very much so a work in progress. I've been doing a lot of plant moving, a lot of just figuring out what this space needs because it's really a weird space. The house is right here to my right, and it casts a very firm shadow about here over. And I did have 6 hostas right in here, the Diamond Lake variety that get, I think, like 42 inches wide. But I didn't realize that the sun actually comes through here pretty strong for a good portion of the day. Too much for hostas, but the perfect amount for hydrangeas because they do perform better, the hydrangeas, if they get at least 6 hours of sun. And I think it's perfect because it's like mid-morning to early afternoon sun, and then it's filtered throughout the rest of the day. Also, the other thing about this flower bed is this lilac right here. This is an old lilac. It's white blooming. It's beautiful in the spring, but it was so full of suckers. Like the whole thing was so thick, you couldn't even see through it. It was like this huge chunk. And all of those suckers never produced flowers. They just kind of came straight up into the plant, and then there was a few little sparse leaves on the end. So they were basically there just stealing energy from the rest of the plant. So I cut all of those out to where you can see this really neat structure. But I think the hydrangeas are going to serve to kind of hide the base, like you can see right here where some older branches were cut out. So I think that these will fluff up enough to kind of mask this, but then you'll see this beautiful structure coming out from behind them. So these grow about 3 to 4 feet tall and about 2 to 3 feet wide. So I thought they would make just a perfect little kind of arc right here around the lilac. And I just think it's going to be like perfect. And they're a zone 3 through 8. We garden in a zone 5. So knowing that they're hardy even 2 zones lower than my growing zone is great because sometimes we have that oddball winter where it actually does get to -17 and we get a lot of snow. It hasn't been like that for 3 years, but that way I know these will be fine. They'll come back, they'll bloom for me. They bloom on new wood. So if they get damaged in the winter or whatever, they'll still produce buds and bloom for me every single year. So I think what I want to do is just get all of these planted. Here are my supplies. I've got the Biotone starter fertilizer, which I use whenever I plant something new. It helps produce root mass really, really fast, which is kind of what we're concerned about this time of year when we plant. Usually the rule of thumb is to plant 6 weeks at least before a hard frost. That way your plants have time to settle into their spot, create some sort of a root system so that they can thrive through the winter. But this will help their roots form even faster. And then I've got my kneeling pad, shovel, and gloves. So let me get these in the ground and then we'll probably come through and put a nice layer of mulch down. already quite a bit of light coming through, and it looks like the sun is about ready to peek over the tree, and then we'll have pretty much full sun for the rest of this morning and early afternoon, which will keep these plants really happy. And don't they just look beautiful right here? I'm so happy with them. I cannot wait to see them grow and fill in. In fact, this whole flower bed is looking so much better. You know, I explained the lilac, you know, the hostas that I had planted here were the Diamond Lake that I then planted further down into the flower bed, which it's a lot more shady in that little area. And those get pretty good size. I want to say they get like 40 or 42 inches or something like that. So it'll create a really bold block of weighty looking foliage back in there. And I think that'll be a really pretty textural and color contrast to the other things I've got going on. So I've got hellebores right here in this area, which I've got a whole bunch more in window baskets. In fact, the kitchen window basket's got like 10 Ivory Prince hellebores from this spring that I put in there that I'm going to plant out here pretty soon and just fill in some of the gaps in this area. So I'm hoping to have my hellebores, the hostas kind of pick up. Then we've got the hydrangeas. I do have coleus and some impatiens right in here. And like I said, this area stays pretty shaded all day long. So these plants do fairly well here. We've got some ridiculous coleus, which is interesting to see how different it grows in full shade as opposed to some of these that I planted in a more full sun location. Those are about this tall and a little bit bushier. So it just goes to show, you know, the different growth rates with the different kind of light. But either way, gorgeous color in each spot. Peachberry ice heuchera right here, which I don't know if this one was new this year or last year. Something like that, but they are just so pretty. Look at this new growth. Look at how beautiful that is. It is like a peach ice. Got that peachy orange with that kind of silver overlay. And the blooms are gorgeous too. I like heucheras that bloom with this creamy white with the dark colored stems. They're really nice for floral arranging. So I did follow up with a shredded bark mulch. That's all this is right here. You can see it's kind of like it's not super chunky. It's got kind of a fine chunk to it. But putting like a 2-inch or so layer of this down, especially around newly planted things, is really good because it does help prevent moisture loss, which is pretty important when you're planting in the fall. Going into winter, you want to make sure you keep as much moisture as you can in the soil, especially if you live in an area with really dry fall and maybe winter times, which we never know around here what we're going to have. So I like to put mulch down for that reason. It helps suppress weeds and it looks really pretty. So I did use the biotone, and then I went and grabbed some soil acidifier, and I put just like maybe a generous tablespoon around the root zone of each one of these hydrangeas because we have super high alkaline soil. And even though hydrangeas are more adaptable to soil pH than I've given them credit for in the past, I do want to combat any problems that we may have. If we bring that soil pH down, then it unlocks nutrients that are in the soil. We tend to get chlorosis here, so an iron deficiency. And if you can kind of condition the soil pH down, that helps a lot with the chlorosis. So anyway, I did put that down before I put the mulch in, just to try to combat that problem and keep these as healthy as possible. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoy having these in my garden, and we will see you in the next one. Bye. Quick side note about the soil acidifier. I didn't put that down to try to change the bloom color. I know that's a huge question. This type of hydrangea will bloom this color regardless of soil pH. The only reason I used it was to try to help condition our soil pH down a bit so that I don't deal with the chlorosis problem. There are different types of hydrangeas that can turn either pink or blue. These are not those. That's a different subject for a different day, a different video.